Hello everyone and welcome back to our channel. We are Millennial Mom. If you don't know who is who, I'm Millennial. This is Mom.
Hello everyone and welcome back to our channel. If you're new here, I'm Mom or Kay from Millennial Mom, and today we're going to talk about Match Me Abroad Season 1 Episode 9, Why Shouldn't I Want the Best? Before I begin, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, and thank you for those of you who already have, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Leave a like. Well, hit the like button. Leave your comment. Let me know what you thought about these couples if you follow the show, or whether you're new or have been watching along the way. And tell a friend to tell a friend that Mom or Kay from Millennial Mom, they are reviewing, or actually this channel is reviewing Match Me Abroad. So let's get started. Match Me Abroad, and I'll put the picture up, is a show based off American singles who go across to Europe to find love. And at the top is Harold on the left, Stanika in the gold dress in the middle, and Susan on the right. At the bottom, we have Katarína from Prague, matchmaker, and matchmaker Nina out of Colombia. And on the right, matchmaker Juan in Colombia. So, okay, let's get started. So last week we saw Michelle. Michelle, I believe, is from North Carolina. She has made it to Prague to meet up with Katarína to find a match for her. She was matched with Michael, and they're on a cooking date, and Michelle starts off a little awkward. Michelle describes herself as a staunch feminist, and everything about her revolves around her being a feminist, in her words. That she doesn't want to feel like she always has to be someone that's labeled as pretty, have to do with beauty standards. She wants someone who's going to love her for her, regardless of her views, and, commit to her and build a lifelong relationship. And Michelle says that she hasn't found that. And then also, too, Michelle is also bringing baggage from her previous relationship because, in her words, she was blindsided because the love of her life, who she thought was, cheated on her. And, that threw everything for a loop, along with her father passing away on the same time period. And so it just has been a lot for Michelle. So like I said, she's on a date with Michael, and Michael's a doctor in Prague. They're on a cooking date where they're baking a cake. And Michael is so focused into the ingredients, what they need to do next. He even has on a chef hat, chef coat, versus Michelle, who is looking at Michael, wondering why he is not being as interested in her the way he is in the cake. So the conversation and their interaction is awkward. Michelle even last week was saying things like, oh, I went to a nudist convention or a swingers club or something like that, she was saying to Michael. And I thought that was a little bit of off-putting conversation. Michael was like, okay, well, can we just get into making the cake and go into the next ingredients? And then while they're still getting together for the cake, Michelle is standing off to the side. She's in her feelings, in her thoughts. She tells production that, there's a lot more that needs to be required from this date. And she really wants Michael to give her the attention that he's giving to bake the cake. And to be fair, Michael was into all the ingredients. He was trying to be very methodical into making the cake and wasn't really giving Michelle the time of day. But I guess maybe whatever type of doctor he is, he likes doing one task at a time, and he wasn't into multitasking with the cake and Michelle. But once they got the cake in the oven, though, that's when things turned for the better for Michelle, because then they got to talking about learning each other more, like why she was looking for a mate in Prague. And she was saying she heard through her matchmaker Katarína that men from Prague were a little bit more traditional, and how does he feel about that? Michael said, you know what? He did apologize for being into the cake more than Michelle at first, baking of the cake. But then he got into, yes, men from Prague are more traditional, but he's someone that's not into the traditional values that. He meant men from Prague are more into making sure they're the breadwinner, taking care of the home while the wife stays home and not working. I think that's probably in a lot of places, not just in Prague, where they follow traditional. The man works and woman stays home with the kids and cooking and cleaning, things like that. But Katarína had already told Katarína, the matchmaker, Michelle, or maybe she told the production that Michael was more Americanized, so he would be much more of a fit to Michelle than Michelle may realize. But once they got to talk about different little things, what they were looking for, and just they start to spark up mutual interest in conversations, especially when they got to talking about, do you believe in love at first sight and different connections like that? Michelle goes, no, but I believe lust at first sight. Michael said, lust? Oh, really? You do, but you don't find like traditional values the way that you want it. I guess I'm trying to paraphrase the way he thought was said it, but that's really what he was getting at. Like, you would rather do lust or have a hookup versus being traditional. So Michelle said yes, as long as there was a good mental connection and we were clicking and sparking on everything else, that's what she was into. And then Michelle also mentioned that she's also very into the intellectual side of things as well. And since Michael's a doctor, that was the key right there. I think that's where the light bulb went off. And then lo and behold, all that conversation, Michelle says, I'm so glad that he finally got to know me and I got to know a little bit more about him. He opened up more and they both agreed to go on a second date. I personally can't believe it because the way Michelle was acting, talking, being standoffish, hand on her hips, and just this look on her face like she was over it and wanted to go home. They connected on that communication and they were going to go and set up a second date. Now, the next day or so, Michelle meets up with matchmaker Katarína to talk to her about how the date went, okay? And so Katarína says at first, she gave a little bit of a rundown. Things weren't going the way that she felt they should, but things turned around with conversation. And then they listened to a voicemail that Michael sent Katarína, and Michael sounded real giddy on the phone. He goes, oh, yes, I had a really good time. She was lovely. I can't wait to see her again. And yes, I would love to go on a second date. So Michelle's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe he really felt that way about me. And even Katarína was shocked because, again, Michelle said that she likes someone who is going to be there for her. She's a feminist. They have to agree with this. Just boom, boom, boom in your face. But Katarína said, you know what? Let me set you up with your next date with Michael. Let me choose the place for you, And Katarína also said to Michelle that maybe you're moving just a little bit too fast in a certain area, but why don't you think about Michael being undressed mentally, just to get your mind stimulated. And Michelle was like, no, we need to be sexually compatible. How would I know if we're sexually compatible if we don't get to do other things? So who knows what's going to happen next week on their date? Maybe Michael will and Michelle will have that lust at first sight like she was talking about. So, all right, let's move to Harold and Michaela. So Harold is back on the episode this week and he's calling Michaela, see what she's up to. It's the next morning because Michaela has moved on to her hotel because she has to go to work today and she works in another city. But Harold's asking her if she's got enough time to come over to see him. So she says, yes, I do, right? She goes, but why don't we meet at the park to exercise? Harold is gung-ho to do anything. He likes Michaela. He feels like he has a connection. He feels like she is actually the one. And so when we see Michaela, she's at the park doing her yoga. Michaela is also intrigued by Harold. She tells production that the date last night was very romantic and she had a really good time. I said, okay, Harold, you had an excellent date and sparks were definitely flying from the beginning of the date in the morning while they're looking at all the scientific things and activities they were doing, to Harold inviting her to the restaurant to have them make her dinner, to Harold showing his book of personal things, of his inventions, and just anything that he held as personal value to him, he shared with Michaela. So Harold is smitten. I believe Michaela is too. So as Michaela is showing Harold different poses with yoga. Harold said that he's never done yoga before, so this is going to be interesting. Now, one thing he said in confessional that just had me cracking up was when Harold said, he had a lot of nuts and different little seeds, and his stomach was really bothering him. I said, Harold, you had the bubble guts. And you're doing all these poses and things, and your stomach is hurting like you could use the bathroom or lose control at any time? Harold, that's you? But Harold said he was a good sport. He was doing anything he could to hold off because he wanted as much time as he could with Michaela, because Michaela had him, like I said, I don't know the name of all the poses, but she had him stretching forward with his hands. She had her hands on his shoulders trying to get him to go forward, but Harold said he was going to push through the pain, and he did. So, yeah, Harold was a really good sport about that. Maybe he didn't want her to know he had to use the bathroom, but listen, if he had to go, he could excuse himself for a minute. Michaela took time out to, be with you for time being before she had to leave to get on the train. But maybe Harold knows his body and he just wasn't sure what was going to happen. So after they do the yoga, they're talking about missing each other and hopefully we can see each other again soon. And Michaela said, yes, it's hard to say, goodbye. They both were saying it. She said it's going to be a 12-hour train ride to the city she lives in. She's got to go back to work, and she's hoping she could come visit him one day. And she doesn't know what the future holds, but she hopes that it's going to be positive. And then Harold was telling her too, like, I'm going to miss you. And eventually he said, I want to meet the family. And I was like, wow, he wants to meet the family already. And he said he wants to maybe spend more time with her in her city as well. I was like, you just got to know her 24 hours ago. And maybe for Harold, this falls in the umbrella. If you know. And with he already wanted to meet the family, you never know. Now, as she leaves to go her way, his heart is on his hand is on his heart. And he's like, oh, I'm going to miss her. Oh, I love her so much. Right now. We'll just have to see how that goes in the future. Will Harold invite her to the States if she's got a passport or visa? And will he be meeting her family? All right. So next up is Susan and Mauricio. This is Susan's second date with Mauricio, and she's going without Juan and her dog, Kharoufeh. Kharoufeh is actually staying in the room, which is the first time because Susan has that dog with her everywhere. She said even though Mauricio doesn't speak English, she can speak a little bit of Italian, so she can figure out the conversation. Now, they're going to have a date at the bar at the hotel where Susan is staying, so she doesn't have to go far. As she goes downstairs to meet Mauricio, they hug, have a nice exchange. I think they're having pretty good conversation. Susan doesn't seem like she's as uptight as she has been on other dates. But then again, like I said, with the other dates, I could see why she would be. But this time, it seemed like her walls are down. She's open into seeing what Mauricio has to offer. And let me say as well, this is Susan's second date in general anyway. So this is a lot of progress for her. So anyways, I know I keep saying anyways, excuse me. So Mauricio is asking Susan, have you seen the art gallery today? Because Mauricio's into art, and Susan told him last week she's into art as well. So he asked her, did she go see the gallery? She said, no, I didn't. So Mauricio on his phone, and I believe on a sketch, was showing Susan some art that he drew and things like that. And she goes, oh, that's very nice. And then he shows her some more on his phone again. And then they got into conversation about questions about life. He goes, tell me about your life. What do you want to know? And Susan goes, oh, that is really deep. Like no one's ever asked me about my life. So questions came up about children. And then question came up about if she has siblings and about her parents and different aspects like that. And also in confessional, Susan says that she does not have any children because she wasn't able to. And that's why she, treats her dog like family, because that's the only connection she feels she has to being a parent. So she's a dog parent. Mauricio has a daughter, and he says that his daughter lives in New York. And Susan goes, oh my gosh, I go there very often. And Mauricio goes, oh, so when I'm there next time, you can be my tour guide. She's like, yes, I would love to. And I said, okay, Susan, here we go. You are forging more connections. I thought that was really great for Susan, because I'm telling you, that wall is starting to crack, because that foundation was real strong, surrounded by steel, surrounded by water in order to get to Susan. Okay, so this is a big progress for her. And I'm kind of happy to see it, because you know what? In order to go through this process, you have to be open. And she seemed like she's finally opening up to someone who is, like I mentioned last week's video, in her peer group. And she mentioned that too, like, we're around the same age, same level, same finances, same business mind, same hobbies. So this is a possible match. And you know what? She also said in confessional, she goes, Juan, the matchmaker, may have gotten this match right. This time she gives him a little bit of credit, but that's all he gets, a little bit of credit, because her other dates wasn't it. And then Mauricio, yes, he also feels like him and Susan are also getting along really well, and says there might be a connection. And yeah. And so she gets up to leave. They weren't in the bar very long. They just had maybe a drink and conversation, and that was it. And he gave her a hug and a kiss, and that was it. So happy for Susan. For once, she had a date that she can be into and something to look forward to in the future, hopefully for her. All right, so let's move to Natalie. Natalie is at the bar waiting for her date, Alejandro, to go on their second date. In confessional, Natalie says Alejandro is everything she feels that she is looking for in a man. He's sweet, he's open, they have good conversation. She feels like there was a click that they sparked, and she just can't wait to see Alejandro today and see what's next that they can do together and connect more. But guess who walks in to the bar where Natalie's waiting on Alejandro at? It's Juan, the matchmaker. She goes, oh, hey. So Juan says, oh, you weren't expecting to see me? She said, no. She goes, what's up? What's wrong? Juan said that he heard from Alejandro, and Alejandro didn't have the same spark that Natalie had. And you know what? When I recall their date, I had mentioned that in the review too. I believe I said that it didn't seem like he was as open as Natalie, because Natalie, just like Susan, this was the first time that she was being open and chatty and outgoing. Seemed like this could be, if it worked out, could be a potential friendship or match going forward, because this is the first time Natalie came out of her shell too, because Natalie isn't used to dating who she wants to. In her family, her culture, she's used to it being like arranged dating, arranged marriages too. So she's trying to get away from that, is the reason why she's in Colombia with Juan. So she told Juan she thought, they had good conversation, even though she felt it was weird a little bit on the religious part when Alejandro was saying what he was into. But at the same time, Juan said, you know what? Don't worry about it. There's plenty of matches out there for you. Do you feel like you feel better knowing that you're doing these things on your own without being under your mother's control, with the dating? Natalie said yes, she feels good about everything. She says that she's going to keep up doing what she's doing. She's going to fight for what she wants in a relationship. And then Juan said, are you sure, like when you go home, do you think that you'll still be able to continue on the tools that I showed you? And Natalie says, well, kind of, she backpedaled, but at the same time, she said, you know what, she will. And she even mentioned that she considers that she is going to consider staying in Colombia for a little while longer because she likes the culture and just do her and enjoy life. And I really hope that she does that. I mean, she's old enough. I believe she's like 27, 28. She's old enough to do that. She's still trying to figure out her life, where she wants to go. Now, whether it be for relationships or not, she just wants to experience culture and know that she's a grown woman, and it's okay for her to be out on her own. So I'm happy for Natalie too. So best success for her going forward as well. Now, let's move to Stanika and Nordine. So today, Stanika is going to meet Nordine to meet his family for lunch, because in the Moroccan culture, the women need to meet the mother and the family to get approval to continue on with dating or not. That's the tradition. And so Nordine is there to pick up Stanika, and she's excited to go, nervous at the same time. I understand completely. Okay. And also, Stanika is bringing the fabric that she picked out with Nordine as a gift to Nordine's mom, as, thank you, nice to meet you. And, this with the fabric, Nordine's mom can make an outfit or the traditional dress to wear, out the fabric. So Nordine and Stanika get to the family's house, and Stanika is met by the mother, Nordine's older brother, and the sister eventually comes in as well. And you know what? They're very welcoming to her. But in confessional, we learned something about Nordine from his brother Yusuf. He said that Nordine is the younger brother, and Nordine has always seemed like he questioned the reasons of the traditions in Morocco and the rules, the laws, and why they had to do certain things. Like he didn't use the word rebel, I'll use it, but just questioning as to why. Like he always wanted to be different, explore other options. And here we are on the show with Stanika as well. And so Stanika presented the fabric to Nordine's mom. She opened the box. She was like very happy. She goes, "Oh, I like the color." They had to translate, but there was a smile on her face. She liked the feel of the fabric. And she asked her, "Oh," Stanika said, "Do you like shiny?" And it was translated. She's like, "Yes." And Stanika told Nordine, "See, I told you." So also in confessional, Nordine lets us know that Stanika already knows about the culture and tradition of me and the family to see if it's okay to move forward. And like Stanika already knows what's expected around his family. So if she wants to continue dating him, like she's expected to go along and make it a good impression. So the way Nordine said that, I was like, I know Stanika knows that, but I think it's kind of the way that he said it in confessional that just made me feel like if she don't know, she need to know kind of thing. But I could be reading more into it. I don't know. That's neither here nor there. So as they bring out the food, and they also bring out a type of milk, the brother describes that the milk that they're drinking is kind of like, he described it from the cow. It's like a skim milk type of thing, and they eat it with their meal and the couscous. Couscous is like a form of rice. And so Stanika in confessional said, "Oh, so this is skim milk?" They said, "Yes, it is." So she goes to halfway taste it, but before she does, production shows us Stanika saying, "That milk right there, you can smell the milk before it comes in the door." She goes, "In America, we don't drink this kind of milk. This is the type of milk that will be thrown out." So apparently it was maybe not pasteurized, and that's how they get their fresh milk. And so if they did shake it and it was skim milk, it's just fresh from the cow to you. And Stanika is not used to that, but she tasted it. She had a look on her face, but she tasted it. And and Nordine is looking at her out the side of his eye, looking at her like, like you better swallow that milk. But I don't know. I think that Stanika, even though she can't hide the fact she don't like the milk, but I think that she's given off a pretty good impression to start. She's very friendly, but also too, let me just jump back just a smidge. Stanika decided to wear a pant outfit today because she said she's normally wore dresses, and she had thought that she made a mistake because it was way too hot. So she should have wore a dress. So she was saying, "Oh, it's warm here," because the older brother Yusuf asked her how she feel about the climate. Was it hot enough for her? She said yes. And she said, "Oh, I should have wore a dress." So Nordine's mother offered her a dress of hers to wear. I thought that was so nice. And to me, like, if the mom didn't halfway like you, I don't think she would offer you to wear a dress of hers. You just had to wear the things that you wear. But Stanika took her up on it and actually came out with a dress of the mother's and put it on and said, "Oh, thank you. I feel so much better." So I thought that was a positive sign. I really, truly did. So we'll see how the dinner scene goes next week even more, and see what the result is, if Stanika and Nordine's relationship will continue going forward. So that was the end of the episode. Next week, we're going to see Susan meet with Mauricio. And the date with Mauricio or the meetup is kind of, I don't know, awkward because Mauricio is raising his voice at Susan a little bit, or is raising his voice at matchmaker Juan, or something's going on. There's some kind of disagreement happening with Susan, Juan, and Mauricio next week. Stanika saying she didn't care for the milk out loud, this time not in confessional, and then asking Nordine's mother how she feels about her, like if she likes her or not. Then also we see Chad on a second date with Maria. Maria's getting to know him, and then when she asks him, so what is it that you like to do on the weekends? And Chad says, I'd like to go to church on Sundays with my mother. And in confessional, Maria's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe he said that. It's almost given like she thinks Chad is a square somehow. And then we also have Mark and Huda. They're on their second date. Huda's asking if Mark feels Nina, the matchmaker, has given him someone else to be a match with besides her. And Mark tells her that, yes, he has another date set up with Nina, and he wonders if Huda is going to be jealous about that. And then also the matchmaker, Katarína, is talking to Harold, and Harold is telling her that he feels like he loves Michaela. Well, he didn't say love, that he has a connection with Michaela, and he wants to make a grand gesture. So he's thinking about proposing to Michaela. And Katarína is saying, you just getting to know her, I think, is too soon. So I don't know. I think Harold might go off on the rail and do his own thing and propose, because Harold has never had a date like this before. And he feels such a strong connection with Michaela. And he feels like he needs to make a grand gesture, whether it be propose or who knows, a promise ring. I think Harold is going to do it regardless. So, all right, everyone, that was the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, like, leave your comments. And until next time, everyone, live simply, be grateful.